Welcome to the first of the solution videos for the 2014 COMP1 exam, Programming Exam Solution Tutorials. And we're going to be looking at how to generate an ordered deck, because I think it'll be useful, certainly if we're going to be looking at shuffling algorithms. And if we're going to do that, we need to be able to display the deck, which I think pretty much is going to be asked almost certainly. And I suppose we ought to look at a new menu item. If you've looked at my tasks video, hopefully you've already had a go at this. So this is just a quick check. I'm not going to spend hours going over it. You'll notice C is missing. That's display shortened names. I'll do that if I've got enough time later on. I don't think it's a life or death one really. So hopefully you've already looked at this strategy. We're going to create a new procedure, and I'm going to go and set that up now. Okay, so I'm in my code, and I'm always going to be working with a clean version of the code. I'm also going to stick any procedures that I create just above the submain but below the structures, just so I know what I've done and what's anything else. I've also minimised all of my procedures so I can just see the program interfaces, basically the header lines. And that makes navigating around the code very, very easily. So the first thing we need to do is obviously create a new procedure, and I'm going to pass the deck in as a T card. Now don't forget, at this stage deck is blank. We've not loaded the deck or anything else. We're basically passing an empty parameter to fill up. The next thing I'm going to do is create a set of nested loops. 2 for loops, one of them with suitnum iterating from 1 to 4, and the other one with a variable called ranking counting from 1 to 13. It seems like the exam board quite like these to be declared, but I'm sure if you're familiar with VB, the for loop self-declares any stepper that you use, so I'm not going to. The next thing we need to do is handle the position within the deck, because these two numbers are basically saying, okay, we're going to go for all of the, I can't remember, I think it's clubs, isn't it, the first one, and then we'll go through from ace through to king on that, then we'll go diamonds, ace through to king, then we'll go through, you get the idea. But where I am in the deck needs to be position 1 through to position 52. So we need to handle that. So I'm going to create a new integer called position, and I need to think, how does the combination of suit number and ranking relate to position? And this is what I've come up with. It might be worth you dry running this to make sure you understand what this line does. Because effectively, if suit number equals 1, then the position will be 1 through to 13. Okay? So 13 times 0 plus 1 through to 13. If the ranking is 2, then it's going to be 13, which will be, you get the idea, plus 1 through to 13, which of course will be 14 through to 26. And then, well, you dry run it. Basically, you need to make sure you understand that line. There is an alternative strategy, which I'll show you right at the end, which I think is more elegant, but this is very, very, very clear. Now what I need to do is actually generate the rank and the suiting and assign it to the particular position of deck. So we've effectively got deck 1 for the very first position would equal 1, 1. Deck 2 would equal 2, 1. Deck 3 would equal 3. You get the idea. Deck 14 would equal 2, 1. And feel free to go through and you basically step through this code, dry run it, and make sure you're happy that it works. I will just pull up the alternative strategy for this. I quite like this. Single loop, count through to 52, and then basically I'm using the div operator to return integer values from effectively 1 through to 4 by dividing 52 by 13, up to 52 by 13, sorry, and using the mod operator to find out what the remainder of that is. The only thing that's a bit annoying is that you've got to faff around with your count, because of course if the rank's going from 1 to 4 rather than 0 to 3, it's a bit annoying. But anyway, moving on. Feel free to have a look at that if you want to. In terms of testing this, the exam board really don't tend to ask you to screenshot watches or stepping through the code. They really like your code to be tested with outputs to the console. They could ask you to step through the code, but what we need to do then is add in a menu item so that we could run this segment of code, and we also need to be able to display the deck. And we're going to use display deck another time as well, but let's create a display deck procedure right now. So hopefully this is going to be fairly straightforward for you. New procedure called display deck. I'm going to pass it the deck, and then just loop through 1 to 52, and there's already a display card procedure there, so we're just going to call that, and I'm just going to put it straight up onto the screen so you can see it. Okay, so there it is, display deck, count through 1 to 52, and then call the display card and pass that particular element of the deck array, just so we can see the display card. I'm assuming you're completely au fait with the code, but as you can see, it's just this concatenation of get rank and get suit. Not a particular fan of these right lines because it spaces everything out, but we'll leave it there for now. No need to change it. Right, now what we need to do is add in a new menu item, and all we've got to do is add something into the display menu, which you can see I've done there. And now we need to add that option into the case statement into the main procedure. While we're at it, let's add a 6th element that is generate ordered deck. So you can see I've done that, create ordered deck, following exactly the same syntax as we've done elsewhere. Right, we now need to test it. Okay, so let's create our ordered deck first. Probably ought to put a little sort of user dialogue to say something like ordered deck created, but we haven't. And now let's display the deck so we can see that both of our procedures worked, and we can see that we've now got a beautifully ordered deck: ace of clubs, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, diamonds, hearts, spades. I really do hate that space, double space between each card, but that's easy enough to take out if you wanted to. So we have just added a menu item, and we have created a procedure to display the deck, and we have created an ordered deck, all three of which will be really useful later on. Hope you found those solutions useful. I will also post up the actual sort of snippets of code if you need to get them as well.